Hello, and welcome to another compelling episode of the Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up, covering the week ending August 16, 2024. Neil Bisson will be your host and guide through the intricate world of national security, espionage, terrorism, and everything in between. Neil is a retired intelligence officer with the Canadian Security Intelligence Service and the director of the Global Intelligence Knowledge Network. He is here to deliver the insights and analysis that only decades of experience in law enforcement and intelligence can provide. This week's episode is packed with gripping stories that are hot of the press, from how Canada became aware of a potential ISIS attack to the appointment of a new Hamas leader to the arrest of Russian spies. We've got everything you need to stay informed and engaged with the most critical issues shaping our world. Before we jump into today's stories, I want to take a moment to thank you for your incredible support. By subscribing to the Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or by simply asking your smart speaker to play it, you can ensure you never miss a beat. If you find our content valuable, please leave a comment, give us a rating, and share it with your network. Your feedback is what keeps us going, and your support is crucial in helping us continue to provide high-quality, insightful content. Want to take your support to the next level? Consider becoming a supporter at buzzsprout.com/2336717/support. Every contribution helps us keep delivering the important insights you rely on. Now, without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode of the Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. We are thrilled to have you with us.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. For our first story, we're exploring a significant development from Pakistan that has sent shockwaves through the intelligence community and military communities. The arrest of Pakistan's former spy master, Lieutenant General Faiz Hameed. Let's break down the key events leading to this extraordinary situation. Lieutenant General Faiz Hameed once led Pakistan's powerful inter-service intelligence agency and has been arrested and placed under military custody. This is a rare and bold move, especially given Hameed's previous standing as a leading figure in Pakistan's military hierarchy. Accusations against him include abusing his power during his tenure as the ISI chief, specifically involving the raiding of a private property developed business. What makes this arrest even more notable is the connection many are drawing between Lieutenant General Hameed and the former Prime Minister Imran Khan, under whose administration Hameed served from 2019 to 2029. From an intelligence perspective, the arrest of such a high-ranking officer is a significant event. It signals a potential shift within Pakistan's military leadership, where accountability and transparency might be taking precedence over traditional norms of protection and hierarchy. From a country where the military holds substantial influence both politically and in matters of national security, this could represent a new era of internal security. To fully understand the implications of this arrest, it's essential to consider that Lieutenant General Hameed's history and his close relationship with Imran Khan. Hameed's tenure as ISI chief coincided with a period when Khan was seen as being previously aligned with Pakistan's military leadership. The arrest could therefore be viewed through multiple lenses. It could be a move to distance the military from Khan's increasingly controversial legacy, a settling of internal scores, or even a broader effort to cleanse the ranks of those who might be seen as having overstepped their bounds. Comparatively, this event can be linked to other moments in history when military figures have been held accountable for their actions, often signaling broader shifts within the institution. However, the unique political and military landscape of Pakistan makes this case particularly complex and consequential. The article quotes Lieutenant General Talat Hussain, a retired officer, who describes the move as unusual and suggests that more arrests could follow. The insight raises questions about whether this is part of a larger strategy within the military to enforce discipline and perhaps realign its internal power structures. Meanwhile, Senator Ifran Siddiqui, a close ally of the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, interprets the arrest as a message that no one is above scrutiny, regardless of their rank or past influence. From my perspective, this arrest could also be interpreted as a strategic move by the current military leadership to consolidate power and remove potential threats. The fact that Hameed was once considered a candidate for the Army's top job, but is now facing a court-martial underscores the volatile nature of power dynamics within Pakistan's military. the arrest of General Faiz Hameed is a landmark event with far-reaching implications for Pakistan's military and political landscape. Whether this signals a general push for accountability or is more about internal power struggles remains to be seen. What's clear is that the development could be seen as a precedent for how military leadership is held accountable in the future. As we watch the situation unfold, it's crucial to stay informed about the broader trends and potential outcomes. This could be a pivotal moment in Pakistan's history, one that might influence not just its internal affairs, but also the relationships on a global scale. In our next story, we're diving into a daring and complex operation in Ukraine, where the Security Service of Ukraine, or SBU, used a double agent to apprehend a senior officer of Russia's GRU in Kyiv. Let's unravel the details of this intriguing operation. The SBU successfully detained a senior agent from Russia's main intelligence directorate, or the GRU, using a double agent strategy. The Russian officer was actively working to establish an intelligence cell in Kyiv with a primary objective to ignite social and political unrest by targeting vehicles belonging to Ukraine's defense forces. These acts of sabotage were meant to destabilize the capital during a time of intense conflict. The SBU's double agent was initially recruited by Russia to carry out these arson attacks. However, after being apprehended by Ukrainian authorities, this individual agreed to collaborate with the SBU, turning the tables on Russian military intelligence officers. This counterintelligence operation culminated in the arrest of a GRU officer, who had been instructed and coordinated the planned subversive attacks. From an intelligence perspective, this operation highlights the effectiveness of double agents in counterintelligence efforts, particularly in environments where trust is easily exploited. The ability of the SBU to flip a Russian asset and use them to draw out and capture senior GRU demonstrates the stakes and strategic thinking involved in modern espionage and counter-espionage activities. To fully appreciate the gravity of this event, it's essential to understand the broader context. The Russian GRU officer was recruited early in Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and had relocated to Kyiv, where she was expected to spearhead sabotage operations. Despite promises of financial support from her Russian handlers, she received none, operating under precarious conditions. The arrest is not an isolated incident. It follows a series of similar operations by the SBU, including the recent detention of fitness trainers from Odessa who carried out an arson attack in Kyiv. These operations underscore Russia's persistent efforts to destabilize Ukraine from within by creating an illusion of a pro-Russian underground movement. Comparatively, the use of double agents has been a hallmark of counterintelligence operations throughout history, often serving as a critical tool in turning the tide against espionage battles. This case adds to the legacy, showcasing the ongoing and intense intelligence warfare between Ukraine and Russia. While the article does not provide full direct quotes from experts, the implications of these operations are clear. The successful use of a double agent by the SBU highlights Ukraine's growing proficiency in counterintelligence, even as it faces a formidable adversary in the GRU. This operation not only neutralizes a direct threat to Kyiv's stability, but also sends a strong message to Russia about the resilience and capability of Ukrainian intelligence services. From my perspective, the operation is a textbook example of how intelligence agencies can use the enemy's own tactics against them. The psychology and strategic advantage gained by SBU in capturing a high-ranking GRU officer cannot be overstated. It disrupts Russia's plans to sow doubt within their ranks about the loyalty and reliability of their assets in Ukraine. The SBU's success of a double agent to capture a senior GRU officer in Kyiv marks a significant victory in Ukraine's ongoing intelligence battle with Russia. This operation not only thwarts a direct threat to Ukrainian national security, but also demonstrates a sophisticated and effective counterintelligence strategy being employed by the SBU. As we continue to monitor the situation, it's crucial to stay informed about the evolving intelligence landscape in this conflict. These events remind us of the complex and often hidden world of espionage, where the line between friend and foe is constantly shifting. In this next story, we change our focus to a significant development in the Middle East, the appointment of Yahya Sinwar as the new overall leader of Hamas, following the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. Hamas has named Yahya Sinwar as its new leader, marking a pivotal moment for the group in a broader region. Sinwar, who has led Hamas in Gaza since 2017, is now stepping into the role as the group's overall chief. The appointment comes at a time of heightened tensions, particularly following the assassination of former leader Ismail Haniyeh, an event that has further strained relations between Israel and Iran. Sinwar's rise to power is a concerning development from a national security perspective. Known for his hardline stance, Sinwar is viewed as one of the most extreme figures within Hamas. His leadership is expected to shift the group's approach, making any future negotiations or ceasefire talks more challenging. Israeli security agencies have long considered Sinwar a top threat, holding him responsible for orchestrating the attacks on October 7, 2023, which resulted in over 1,200 deaths and the taking of 251 hostages. Yahya Sinwar's appointments follows 2 days of intense discussion among Hamas leaders in Doha. The decision to elevate Sinwar is seen as a direct response to the assassination of Haniyeh, signaling a move towards a more militant leadership within Hamas. Sinwar's background is steeped in militancy. He was born in Khan Yunis, a refugee camp in 1962, and he's the founder of the Internal Security Service, Majid. His tenure in Israeli prisons, where he was sentenced to more than 4 life terms before being released in a 2011 prisoner exchange, has only solidified his reputation as a hardliner. This change in leadership is particularly troubling given the current geopolitical landscape. Sinwar's histories and actions make him a figure of intense concern for Israel and its allies, as he is likely to pursue a more aggressive agenda. His appointment comes as Iran and its regional allies are threatening retaliation for Haniyeh's killing, further complicating an already volatile situation. The appointment of Yahya Sinwar has drawn immediate and strong reactions. Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz called Sinwar's elimination, labeling him an arch-terrorist. Israeli Defense Forces have similarly condemned Sinwar, highlighting his role in the October 2023 attacks. From an international perspective, experts like Javed Ali, a former U.S. National Security Council official, have noted that Sinwar's leadership could severely hamper ongoing ceasefire and hostage release negotiations due to his inflexible stance. Sinwar's ascension represents a shift towards a more militaristic and uncompromising leadership within Hamas, which will likely lead to an increased instability in the region. His history of violence and his role in recent attacks make him a formidable and dangerous figure, complicating efforts for peace and security in the Middle East. Yahya Sinwar's appointment as the new leader of Hamas is a significant and concerning development that will likely have far-reaching implications beyond the Middle East. His leadership marks a shift towards a more militant and extremist stance, heightening the risks of further conflict. As we monitor the situation, it's critical to understand the broader geopolitical implications and prepare for potential escalations. In our next story, we're diving into a controversial acquisition involving a Chinese state-owned mining enterprise and a Canadian company, sparking concerns over national security and geopolitical strategy. A recent deal between Vancouver-based Pan American Silver Corporation and Zhengtang, a Singapore mining company, also a subsidiary of China's Xing Mining Group, has come under scrutiny by the Canadian government. The $300 million USD agreement for the sale of La Aria gold mine in Peru has raised significant concerns, leading industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne to suggest a potential national security review. The primary issue at hand is whether Canada has the jurisdiction to review a deal involving assets located entirely in Peru. Zhengtang has challenged the minister's authority, arguing that the Peruvian entities involved do not operate in Canada, have no Canadian employees, and hold no assets within Canada. This dispute underscores the complexities of foreign investment and the geopolitical implications of such deals. Canada's critical mineral strategy places a high value on maintaining control over resources essential to the green and digital economy. The government is particularly cautious when it comes to foreign investments from state-owned enterprises, especially those linked to hostile states like China. The Xing Mining Group, partially owned by the Chinese government and overseen by members of the Chinese Communist Party, is viewed with suspicion due to its ties to Beijing. National security experts warned that allowing foreign actors, especially from China, to acquire Canadian companies or assets linked to strategic materials could have severe geopolitical consequences. The deal involving Pan American Silver Company and Zhengtang is seen as a test of Canada's ability to regulate and protect its interests, even when the assets in question are located abroad. Aaron Shull, Managing Director and General Counsel at the Center for International Governance and Innovation, describes the situation as a fairly complicated story that is actually quite simple. The deal, he argues, is part of a broader strategic plan by China and Latin America, where Beijing has increasingly assertive in securing access to natural resources. Shull also highlights the potential implications for Canada's legislative framework. If Chongqing successfully avoids a national security review, it could set a precedent allowing foreign companies to structure deals in a way that circumvents Canadian law, potentially weakening the country's ability to protect its strategic interests. The outcome of this case will be pivotal in determining how Canada handles future foreign investments, particularly those involving critical minerals and state-owned enterprises from countries like China. The stakes are high, as the decision could either strengthen Canada's national security framework or expose vulnerabilities in its ability to regulate foreign influence. Our next story deals with the Canadian government's response to a recent arrest and the Toronto terror plot in the ongoing review of immigration screening processes. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has stated that the federal government is taking an internal review into the immigration and screening of 2 suspects recently arrested in connection with the alleged foiled terror plot in Toronto extremely seriously. This case has raised significant concerns about how individuals connected to terrorism can enter and reside in Canada. Last month, the RCMP arrested Ahmed Fawad Mustafa El Didi, 62, and his son Mustafa El Didi, 26, in Richmond Hill, Ontario. The 2 men were reportedly in the advanced stages of planning a violent attack. These charges include conspiracy to commit murder in association with the Islamic State, with most of the alleged activities having taken place in Canada. The elder El Didi is accused of committing an aggravated assault abroad in June 2015 for the benefit of ISIS. The situation has sparked a political and public outcry, particularly after reports surfaced that Ahmed El Didi may have been filmed participating in ISIS violence overseas before immigrating to Canada. Questions have been raised about how these men were able to enter the country, with conflicting reports about their citizenship status. The case prompted the House of Commons Public Safety and National Security Committee to hold a rare summer meeting to discuss the matter further. The committee is set to question the Minister of Public Safety and the Minister of Immigration on how the El Didis were able to enter Canada and remain here, given the allegations against them. Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc emphasized the importance of ongoing security work, assuring Canadians that the security services are diligent in their efforts to protect the public. He pointed out that the RCMP's successful apprehension of the suspects demonstrates the effectiveness of Canada's intelligence and law enforcement agencies. The opposition, particularly the Conservative Party, has been vocal in calling for a thorough investigation into the immigration process that allowed these individuals to enter Canada. The NDP has also supported the call for an emergency meeting to address this issue. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has promised a proper and thorough investigation, indicating that more information will be shared with the public when appropriate. However, the lack of specific details has led to mounting pressure on the government to provide clarity on how such a security lapse has occurred. This case highlights the critical importance of a robust immigration screening and the challenges that are faced by governments in balancing national security with humanitarian considerations. As a former CBSA officer and a retired intelligence officer, I can tell you the number of claims by individuals entering a country or attempting to gain status in Canada compared to the resources, funding, and personnel required to vet these individuals is in a massive disproportion. The Canadian government has boasted about the increased number of new immigrant and temporary residents entering Canada for the last 5 to 10 years. However, with an increase in numbers comes the potential for an increase in national security concerns, and this must be taken seriously. The outcome of the ongoing review and the findings from the House of Commons Committee will be pivotal in reshaping or shaping future policies and procedures related to national security and immigration in Canada. Our next story brings us across the globe to discuss the recent revelations by Australia's spy chief Mike Burgess and foreign interference in Australia. Mike Burgess, the Director General of the Australian Security and Intelligence Organisation, has confirmed that at least 3 or 4 countries are involved in foreign interference within Australia, targeting diaspora communities. Among these nations, Iran has been publicly identified, but Burgess hinted that others, including some of Australia's allies, are also involved. Foreign interference and espionage are significant concerns for Asia, with attempts to intimidate and control diaspora communities being a particular focus. Burgess's comments have drawn attention to the covert actions of both hostile states and, surprisingly, some friendly nations that are attempting to exert influence on Australian soil. Iran's involvement was previously disclosed by the former cybersecurity minister, Claire O'Neill, who revealed that ASIO has disrupted an Iranian surveillance operation targeting an Iranian-Australian individual's home earlier this year. Foreign interference is a growing threat in Australia, and ASIO's identification of multiple countries' involvement in these activities underscores the complexity of the issue. The involvement of friendly nations in such actions is particularly concerning and raises questions about the extent of foreign influence in Australia. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has chosen not to disclose the names of those countries involved, emphasizing that the government's priority is the safety of Australians. Albanese stated that the government is careful about releasing information, following the advice of intelligence agencies to avoid unnecessary alarm. The issue of foreign interference is not unique to Australia. Globally, many nations are grappling with similar challenges as foreign powers seek to influence internal affairs through diaspora communities, espionage, and other covert means. Burgess's revelations have sparked debate within Australia, particularly about the need for transparency versus the need to protect national security. While the public has a right to know about threats to their safety, disclosing too much information could compromise ongoing intelligence operations and diplomatic relations. In addition to foreign interference, Burgess discussed the recent decision to raise Australia's terrorism threat from possible to probable. He highlighted the evolving nature of terrorism threats, noting that a broad range of ideologies, including socioeconomic grievances, conspiracy theories, and religious extremists, are now driving violence. Burgess also addressed concerns raised by opposition MPs about the potential security risk posed by individuals fleeing conflict zones such as Gaza and being granted visas to Australia. He assured the public that ASIO has processes in place to assess and mitigate these risks effectively. Australia's rows concerning foreign interference are a wake-up call to Canada. To this point, public inquiry into foreign interference has mostly focused on hostile states like Russia, China, and Iran. But so-called friendlier states like India and Pakistan have also been listed as countries involved in foreign interference in Canada's political and electoral system. As I have stated before, the federal political system is not the only one in jeopardy of being manipulated by foreign interference. The provincial and municipal systems are just as much a target of foreign states as the federal system. The disclosure of foreign interference by hostile and friendly nations in Australia is just another reminder of the complex and interconnected nature of global security threats. As ASIO continues to monitor and respond to these challenges, so too must the Canadian intelligence community balance the need for transparency with the imperative to protect national security. We're turning to the deeply concerning story out of Toronto, Canada, where the government is considering revoking the citizenship of a man accused of plotting a terrorist attack for ISIS. The article we're focusing on is titled, "Government Could Revoke Citizenship of Toronto ISIS Suspect, Minister Says." Ahmed Fawad Mustafa El-Didi, a 62-year-old Canadian citizen, was arrested alongside his son at the hotel in North Toronto on July 28th. The two were allegedly involved in the advanced stages of planning of a serious violent attack in the city, where weapons such as an axe and a machete were found at the scene. El-Didi has been charged in connection with a gruesome assault overseas, which reportedly involved the dismemberment of a prisoner and an ISIS propaganda video. From an intelligence perspective, this case underscores the persistent threat that ISIS poses even years after its territorial defeat in Syria. The idea that someone could plan an attack on Canadian soil despite being a naturalized citizen speaks to the ongoing risk of radicalization and the challenges in vetting immigrants thoroughly to prevent such individuals from gaining citizenship. Moreover, the fact that El-Didi allegedly concealed his past involvement with ISIS while applying for Canadian citizenship raises critical questions about the integrity of the immigration process. It also highlights the broader issue of how nations can protect themselves from individuals who may harbor extremist views despite having lived in their adopted country for years. To understand the gravity of this case, we need to look at it from a broader context of citizenship revocation in Canada. Historically, the government has had the power to revoke citizenship for those who misrepresented their past, particularly in cases involving war crimes or terrorism. This power has been exercised in the past against Nazis and more recently modern-day war criminals. However, the issue of revoking citizenship has been politically contentious. Back in 2015, the Conservative government introduced legislation allowing for the revocation of citizenship from convicted terrorists. But this law was repealed by the Prime Minister Trudeau's Liberal government under the principle that a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. Despite this, the government retained the authority to revoke citizenship from individuals who obtained it through fraudulent means, which is the avenue currently being explored in the El-Didi case. This situation is reminiscent of other high-profile cases where individuals with dual nationality were stripped of their citizenship due to terrorist activities, a practice more common in the United Kingdom, but still politically divisive in Canada. Immigration Minister Mark Miller has stated that his department is conducting a thorough investigation into El-Didi's immigration and citizenship timeline, aiming to determine whether there is sufficient evidence to revoke his citizenship. Miller expressed his disgust over the situation, emphasizing his commitment to ensuring the safety of Canadians while balancing the need to respect the legal process. From my professional viewpoint, the potential revocation of El Didi's citizenship could set a precedent in how Canada handles similar cases in the future. The ongoing criminal proceedings against El Didi and his son will undoubtedly influence the government's next steps, but this case serves as a stark reminder of the complexities involved in countering terrorism, particularly when it involves individuals who have integrated into society. The case of Ahmed Fouad Mustafa El Didi highlights the ongoing threat of ISIS and the challenges that come with managing immigration and citizenship on the context of national security. The government's decision on whether to revoke his citizenship could have far-reaching implications for how Canada handles similar cases in the future. Looking ahead, it's likely that we'll see increased scrutiny of individuals with suspected ties to terrorist organizations, especially as global tensions continue to rise.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. We dedicate a lot of effort to delivering expert insights and analysis to keep you informed on the critical global intelligence issues of our time. If you find value in the content we provide, I encourage you to support the show by visiting buymeacoffee.com/GIKN or buzzsprout.com/2336717/support. Your contributions directly support the ongoing production of high-quality, in-depth discussions each week. Whether through a one-time donation or ongoing support, your help is crucial in bringing you the expert perspectives that matter. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or simply ask your smart speaker to play Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed today's content, please leave a comment, give us a rating, and share the episode with others. Your feedback is invaluable and helps us reach a wider audience. Stay tuned for more in-depth discussions in our next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.